For those of you who don't know, this is an annual tradition of mine ever since I wrote this several years ago. And I just wanted to share some time with my friends, and this is my time to share. So, if you haven't poured something already, please go ahead and pour yourself a drink, relax, and enjoy A Christmas Story. This is from the original Christmas Story. Those of you who might know it as Die Hard, I call it the Nakatomi Plaza Before Christmas, A Christmas Heist. Grumpy John McClane is on a plane to travel to L.A. He's trying to relax, but it's a fact that planes are not a sleigh. His seat partner opines it's not red wine, but toes in a carpet to unwind. John shakes his head. You see, he's nearly unwed. He's found himself in a bind. He knows he's to blame, for his wife is estranged. What John needs is a vacation. Holly's not a martyr. She has a new partner, the Nakatomi Corporation. They value her work, unlike John, who's a jerk, whose marriage he did botch. Co-workers are jealous. I'm talking about Ellis, who covets her Rolex watch. John steps off the plane, and much to his gain, he meets a new curious fellow. Argyle will drive, and he'll stay alive by staying in his stretch limo. John steps into building, gleaming glass, stainless gilding, the home to a new pharaoh. McClane searches last name, and much to his shame, finds out she's Holly Gennaro. Maiden name she's kept, even though he schlepped his way from New York City. To the party he'll forge, he begins to engorge on appetizers, champagne, and pity. Yet the music peaks when their eyes meet. Holly says she has room at her place. She invites him to stay. John's ego gets in his way, and he argues just to save face. Douche. Hans Gruber is a villain. He's about to make a killing. First with those who will resist. What he seems he is not. I'll not give away the plot, but this terrorist has a twist. The bad guys disembark, not even bothering to park. Their bullets they will anoint. They make their guns hot. The security guard is shot. Theo yells, "Boom!" 2 points. They enter the party. Hans Gruber is a smarty. He wants Takagi alive. He lists off his CV. Stanford Law degree, and adds, father of 5. He compares suits, for he wants to recruit. Hans is in good guy mode. He expects resistance, but he needs the assistance of Takagi to give him the code. 7 safeguards there are. You won't get that far, Takagi says to him. I'm counting to 3. You'll just have to kill me. The CEO's future is grim. And it happens that fast. Blood splattered on glass as Takagi is defaced. Shot at close range. Money is exchanged from a bet that had been placed. Now, a noise from outside. McClane was trying to hide, and suddenly guns are cocked. They run into the room. John is gone and avoids doom behind a door that is locked. Meanwhile, Argyle is jamming. In the limo, he's slamming, keeping company with the bear. There's been gunfire galore on the 30th floor, but it's nothing that he'll ever hear. John pulls an alarm, and fire engines do swarm towards the Nakatomi Plaza. But they stop just in time, and the elevator door chimes faster than you can say abracadabra. Tony comes in to search, reassures no one will get hurt as he walks towards the noise. A barrel peers at his head. John warns he'll be dead. Tony tries to maintain his poise. Tony's head John whacks. Tony spins and attacks. Through drywall they do trek, and gravity they defy. As down the stairs they fly. On the landing, John breaks his neck. John grabs his CB. He checks his ID. He takes a lighter for later. His body too heavy to bear, he loads it into a chair and pushes it onto an elevator. Notice the pattern every once in a while. Hans is in mid-oration about how he wanted cooperation. When he hears the familiar chime, the elevator door slides, everyone sees what's inside, and Hans stops his speech on a dime. Their eyes they avert, for on Tony's sweatshirt he reads a message that makes him blow. Written sloppy in red, most likely in blood since he's dead. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. John sees this unfold. His plan was quite bold. He's on top watching through the grate. He'll see them all later. Up speeds the elevator, passing its own counterweight. He steps on a beam. With no chance being seen, his realistic fear is a fall. But he's not bulletproof. So up on the roof, he goes to make an important call. With CB in hand, he calls out to the land, "Mayday! Mayday, anyone!" Hans overhears this. The best place to transmit, he sends his men upstairs with their guns. The supervisor frowns. The Mayday call has her down. She all but asks McLean for his visa. She means him no harm. There was that false alarm. Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza? Shots then ring out. Henchmen flying about. On the roof, John McClane is trapped. But our hero's not daft. In the ventilation shaft, he finds a way to avoid getting capped. From his own gunsling, he begins to swing. At the last second, loses his grip. Then through physics unlikely, his fingertips catch tightly to the edge of the ventilation lip. He crawls through the duct, never counting his luck, lights a lighter to try to see. Carl shoots upwards blind, stopping his shots just in time to avoid making John Swiss cheese. The dispatcher doubts, despite John's shouts, that he's being chased at all. Sergeant Paul grabbing snacks for its Twinkies he lacks when he receives the call. McLean watches him arrive, thinking God he's alive. Then another gunfight's enabled. He shoots one in the door and another from the floor, from under a conference table. A fake guard greets the Sarge. Though he's not really in charge, he pretends to be in the know. Powell looks around, but the only sound he hears is, "Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow." There's no reason to stay. He walks away. "Screw this," says Sergeant Al. John throws a terrorist bod, riddling gunfire on the squad, yells, "Welcome to the party, pal!" Al backs up, max speed, paying no heed. "Jesus H. Christ," he blurts. The police are alarmed. To make sure no one is harmed, SWAT teams are dispersed. The deputy chief moves in, Dwayne T. Robinson, a weasel through and through. Thornburg's the local news, has a short fuse and the ethics of a shrew. The chief leads an assault, and it's none of his fault. He's unaware that Hans plans ahead. Theo calls in the attack. SWAT teams are swatted back. Several officers are most likely dead. Theo sees this on TV, that the cops have an RV. But his crew has a much bigger boast. A guided missile he launches. Theo yells as he watches, "Oh my God, that quarterback is toast." John can't watch and stare. He puts C4 on a chair and throws it down the shaft. "Geronimo, motherfucker!" But his butt begins to pucker when he sees the flame approaching his aft. In the aftermath, L tells that he's catching some hell for John blowing up the third floor. 2 terrorists are gone. There's glass on the lawn, and it's gonna need a shitload of screen doors. Scotch break. I suggest you do the same. Alice begins to balk. "Hans, sprechen Sie talk? The guy upstairs, I can give him to you." He claims John's a good friend, but negotiations are at an end. Hans doesn't even count to 2. Hans wants the detonators, but he'll look for that later. Right now, he needs to check on C4. He lifts up, is displeased, and falls on his knees as he sees bare feet on bare floor. On this very day, Hans pretends he's Bill Clay. "You're one of them, and I know it." John questions him some and hands him a gun. Hans is pleased, but tries not to show it. He's played him for sure with deception unpure and an accent that would fool most, but that doesn't fool John. "Nice work with the accent, Hans." I'll bet you thought McClane was toast. Another gunfight ensues. Hans notices no shoes and tells them to shoot the glass. He runs as they strafe, making the office unsafe as McClane tries to de-ass. He drags himself clear next to the bathroom mirror, leaving a trail of red, pulling out glass shards, which he'll later discard, into the sink where he's bled. John tries to raise morale by calling Sergeant Al and asks why he's not on the street. "I shot a kid," he confides, and he no longer hides why he's no longer walking a beat. With plans looming large, now the FBI is in charge. Power is shut down to the whole grid. To Theo's own shock, the electromagnetic lock opens up as Hans thought it did. The vault opens wide and shows what's inside, so happy that no one responds. Then they let out a cheer. It's the reason they're here. $640 million in bearer bonds. McClane stops in his tracks, and he cannot relax. When he talks about the guy upstairs, on that top floor, he discovers C4. It's beyond his worst fears. But then Carl finds him, and it's looking grim. He feels his acrimony. Carl's on a hate binge. He wants revenge. John killed off his brother, Tony. Merry Christmas. Thornburg's at Holly's house, and because he's a louse, he makes Lucy beg for her mom. Hans does the math quick, and even though he's a prick, spares Holly of the rooftop bomb. She's his ace in the hole, and he tells her her role. A policeman's wife might come in handy. Upstairs now, he shouts, and there is no doubt. The hostages think this is dandy. He makes it quite clear with a sniveling sneer that he will give Holly some grief. She bristles with disdain and begins to complain. You're nothing but a common thief. This angers the crook, and with one quick look, he makes his opinion brief. No longer polite, he slaps her outright. I am an exceptional thief. Carl tosses his gun. He wants to have fun and take McClane with great pain. After punches and kicks, John gets in his licks and hangs Carl from a chain. Helo's hovering overhead to avoid anyone dead. John shoots his gun into the sky. It works just as planned. The hostages disband. But he's also frightened the FBI. The chopper wheels around. Bullets abound. McClane is being chased. The good guys don't know. His gunfire was just for show. To the brink he makes with great haste. With one quick knot to avoid being shot, he says, "Please, don't let me die." But it isn't hard, having played the right card. He takes a step and flies. The rooftop explodes. John's hanging by a hose, and he shoots right through the glass. Then he splashes inside, but begins to backslide as the reel makes a quick pass. It drags him to the edge. His feet he tries to wedge as he barely stays indoors. He barely gets free, just in time to see the fire outside that roars. Ruin that line. Let's have some more scotch. That'll fix things. In the garage, Argyle finds, while he no longer tries to unwind, an ambulance is coming down the ramp. He drives into his fender, and even though he's slender, punches him out like a champ. John counts his lead. He's filled with dread. He finds he has only two. There's those bad guys. Hans is wise, and there's Holly he needs to rescue. Now John confronts, and one of Hans' grunts reaches for his lifeline, but Hans stops him cold. He's being very bold. He says, "This one is mine." Our hero's been great. There is no debate, but it would seem that John's done. With Holly in hand, it's just as Hans planned. He tells John to put down his gun. Hans smiles with glee, points the gun at he, saying, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker." But taped to his back, John's hidden his gat. All the time, it's been Hans who's the sucker. As Christmas music plays, McClane blows them away. Hans reels and falls through the glass. He's not through with his harm. He grabs Holly's arm and is in an effort to save his own sorry ass. He grips her wrist tight, looks down with affright. John pulls on the Rolex latch. With a mouth still agape, Hans flies without a cape. As from Holly, he is detached. Hans falls with a thud. Holly ignores all the blood and grips John in a tight embrace. To the lobby they ride, and then to outside. McClane closes the case. Then John sees Al. He has a new pal. A bromance is about to emerge. They hug it out tight, but there's a new fright when the music begins to surge. Carl's crusted in dirt. Even though he is hurt, he comes out from where he was hid. Al is there on the scene, and he shoots him down clean, because Carl is not a kid. Of course, Thornburg's there, and he's shown little care. The reporter's such a disgrace. When he pushes a mic, Holly doesn't hide her dislike. She punches Thornburg in the face. Argyle crashes the gate. He's not running late, and he's still on company time. He pulls up the drive to prove he's alive. Missing a pickup would be a crime. If this is your idea of Christmas, Argyle smiles, now without any fears. He opens the door for John once more. I gotta be here for New Year's. Merry Christmas, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Glad you tuned in. Hope you have a great one.